Brooklyn Independent Television.
My name is Scher. I'm a filmmaker, and primarily an animator. I live in Brooklyn, New York, in scenic Dumbo. I began making films probably, I guess, in high school, maybe a little earlier. It was a way to work in time. My mother's a painter, and I grew up sort of in a painting household. And I always loved painting, but I was always very frustrated that they didn't move. So animation was just a natural segue. You can make paintings that move. Movies are as close as we get to time travel. You know, you get to put time in a can, in a box. It's like this window that you can look through at any point after you've recorded it. And to me, that's really still a miracle, and something that I think about every time I press the button. You know, film divides into two halves for me. One half is conventional cinema, which essentially records time. You know, it takes existing time and then recreates it approximately the way it was recorded. Animation is the other side of cinema, where you manufacture time. So to get to the essence of cinema, really, for me, you know, you construct time, frame at a time. You know, you construct it out of these consecutive slices. And what that gives you is, you know, much more opportunities for mischief. What's interesting is what you can do between the frames, and how when they collide, they create this other event. You know, you get these sort of chains of collisions that create this other thing. It's a texture that, when it's painted, there's a texture that breathes and has like a life of its own. When I talk about rotoscoping, it's in the context of really traditional rotoscoping. It's where an image is projected onto the paper, and that's a drawing reference, and then that paper is filmed. The original image just goes away after the drawing process. So basically, I use rotoscoping as a live-action template to get the feel of live action and human motion onto the paper. My medium of choice is watercolor and gouache, water-based mediums. It's really fast, and it's on paper. It's an ideal medium. You know, it's a medium that I sort of grew up in, so I'm very comfortable in it. But I love the colors, and the luminosity of watercolor is really terrific, because you always have this light coming through it. It's always transparent to a degree. They all sort of look the same, but the difference between that and that will be explosive. It'll be like, poof. What I do is I'm constantly scouring the horizon for tools that give you different windows on the world. It's like, you know, every camera has like a way of seeing the world, and like a flavor of vision to it that you can use, and that often will suggest a movie, or like a way of seeing, or a point of view, or an emotion, a feeling. You know, when you look through a misty lens, I mean, it's almost universal for it being romantic. Even if it's only one out of like many frames, that detail comes through in the end. And you know, the eye is constantly looking to distill, to pull these narrative images out of it. Most of my work, there's sort of two paths. One is where there's a window, like a camera or something, that sees things in an interesting way, and I'll start to play with it, and then what it sees and what I get builds into some kind of event. But the other ideas, more of the Times films, really come from thinking about the emotion of a place, a moment, or an event, and then trying to recreate that. about 3 years ago that I was asked by the New York Times to make a film a month for the op-ed page and online. And it was a sort of an amazing opportunity, and I jumped at it. And so for the last 3 years, I've been making 1.5 to 3 minute films on a monthly basis. There was no mandate from the Times about what they would be like. They just wanted more films like I'd been making. And some editors had been to a show of mine and seen some work. The main thing is that it has an emotion, that the emotion is very clear. I try to make films that are not intellectual, nothing against it, but I just think emotions are stronger and more interesting. And it's the thing that music has always had, that filmmakers have always envied, I think, is the ability to take you away emotionally, and that how a certain note can have a certain emotional chord or response. So I'm trying to create a language of pictures that has emotional equivalence. I've been working with the same composer for about 20 years, Scher, who also lives in Brooklyn. And we always say that music is the emotion track. It tells you how to feel about a picture. You can very easily change the way a film reads by switching music. The Shadow's Dream started with, I was walking behind a very old woman, and the sun was in front of us, and her shadow was so elegant. It really struck me as, it was a drawing. It was an animated drawing moving on the pavement. And then I turned the camera upside down, and suddenly the shadow was the real thing, and the person was the shadow. The sun turns the city into this endless, unchoreographed ballet of these drawings moving across the pavement. Essentially, it's a portrait of the city in shadows.
Brooklyn Independent Television on the BCAT TV network.